She lay awake in the dark, the ceiling fan tracing slow circles above her, pushing warm air across her skin without offering relief. The night in Ibadan was never truly quiet, but at this hour the sounds softened into something almost intimate. Distant engines, a dog barking once and then falling silent, the low hum of electricity that reminded her she was not alone even when she felt unbearably so. Abeni stared at her phone, its glow a pale moon against her chest. Her thumb hovered, trembling slightly, as if it could feel the weight of what she had written. Loneliness had pressed her into this moment, loneliness and desire tangled together so tightly she could not tell where one ended and the other began. She had typed the message without intention, words spilling out as if they had been waiting behind her ribs for permission. It was not meant for anyone. It was a private release, a whisper into the void. She had written about waiting, about heat that lingered on skin long after touch had been denied, about the ache of being close to someone who felt far away. Nothing explicit. Nothing she could not defend. And yet everything about it felt exposed. Suggestive in the way truth often was. She felt as though she were overhearing herself, listening to a woman she barely recognized admit how badly she wanted to be seen. The message sat there, unsent, a fragile thing. Her breath slowed. Her chest rose and fell, slow, deliberate. Anticipation curled low in her stomach, unwelcome but undeniable. She told herself she would delete it. She always did. But tonight her restraint felt thin, stretched too far by months of pretending she was satisfied with half a life. When she finally pressed send, it was almost an accident, a reflex, the smallest movement with the largest consequence. Her heart jumped as if she had stepped off a ledge. Only then did she notice the name at the top of the screen. Not Kola. Abeni sucked in a sharp breath and sat up, the sheet sliding down her shoulder. The contact was old, nearly forgotten, saved after a misdirected email months earlier from a South Korean logistics firm she had briefly consulted with on a regional infrastructure project. She had never spoken to the man. She barely remembered saving the number. Panic flared hot and bright, then settled into a dull, nauseating embarrassment. She turned the phone face down as if that could undo what she had done. Sleep did not come. Her thoughts circled, replaying the words she had sent, imagining how they might look to a stranger. Inappropriate. Confusing. Too honest. The ceiling fan clicked softly as it turned. Somewhere in the apartment, water dripped steadily from a tap she kept meaning to fix. Her skin still felt warm, hypersensitive, as though the message itself had brushed against her. Eventually exhaustion pulled her under. The vibration against the mattress woke her just before dawn. She reached for the phone before she could think better of it. A reply. From the same unfamiliar name. Her pulse skidded, then steadied as she read. The message was short, careful. An apology for reading something that was clearly not meant for him. An assurance that he would not intrude further unless she wished. No assumptions. No judgment. Just the quiet acknowledgement that something human had passed between them, even by accident. Abeni exhaled slowly. Her fingers hovered again, heat blooming in her cheeks. She could ignore it. She should ignore it. But curiosity stirred, sharp and alive, cutting through her embarrassment. There was something in his restraint that made her feel safer than she had in a long time. She typed back, choosing each word with care, explaining briefly, lightly, that the message had been a mistake. That she appreciated his discretion. He replied almost immediately. He introduced himself as Jihun. He said he was in Busan. He said he understood mistakes better than most. The conversation began in that careful way, each of them testing the space between words. Jihun did not ask personal questions. He did not flirt. He responded thoughtfully, sometimes pausing long enough that Abeni wondered if she had said too much. She found herself filling the silence, sharing things she did not usually offer so easily. That she worked as an urban resilience strategist, advising cities on how to prepare for rapid growth and unexpected shocks. That she loved the idea of systems that protected people quietly, without recognition. That nights were the hardest. Jihun listened. When he spoke, he revealed only fragments. He worked in risk logistics, coordinating complex movements across borders. He preferred the sea at night, the way it absorbed secrets. He slept little. There was a steadiness to him that made her feel anchored, even through text. The tension between them was subtle, unspoken, but unmistakable. It lived in the pauses, in the way their messages grew longer as the sky lightened outside her window. When the conversation finally slowed, neither of them suggested stopping. They simply drifted, letting the space breathe. Ebony lay back, the phone warm in her hand, her body humming with a sensation that felt dangerously close to hope. The days that followed settled into a quiet rhythm. Jihoon did not crowd her. He messaged when he had something to say, when a thought crossed his mind that he wanted to share. Ebony found herself looking forward to those moments more than she wanted to admit. Their conversations deepened, threading through ideas of responsibility and freedom, through stories of childhood and ambition, through the unspoken recognition that both of them were holding parts of themselves back. Kola returned from another trip 3 days later. He smelled of unfamiliar soap and airplane air, his embrace distracted, his mind elsewhere. He spoke of meetings that ran long, of negotiations that went nowhere. His answers shifted subtly when she asked questions, details rearranging themselves just enough to raise her attention. At night, he lay beside her without touching, his back turned, his phone always within reach. Ebony watched him in the dim light, the sense of distance between them widening into something she could no longer ignore. She told herself she was being paranoid. Kola had always worked in volatile spaces. He had always carried stress home with him. Still, something in her tightened every time his phone buzzed and he left the room to answer it. The intimacy she shared with Jihoon, though restrained, cast a harsh light on the emptiness in her own bed. One night, long after Kola had fallen asleep, Ebony rose quietly and opened his laptop. She had never done this before. The guilt pricked immediately, sharp and unwelcome. But curiosity, once awakened, was relentless. She told herself she was only looking for reassurance. What she found made her chest constrict. Encrypted folders nested within innocuous directories. Shipping manifests routed through ports she recognized from her own work, connected to companies that did not quite exist. Financial transfers that looped back on themselves. Names she had seen in international briefings tied to arms diversions and sanctioned trade. The deeper she looked, the more the patterns aligned into something unmistakable and terrifying. Her hands shook as she copied files onto a secure drive. Kola shifted in his sleep, murmuring her name. She froze, breath held, heart hammering. When he settled again, she closed the laptop with care and returned to bed, staring at the ceiling fan as it traced its endless circles. She did not sleep. The next day, she told Jihoon that she was afraid. She did not give details at first. She said something was wrong with someone she loved. That she suspected his work was not what he claimed. Jihoon's responses changed subtly, his questions growing more precise, his pauses longer. When she finally sent him screenshots of the files, there was a stretch of silence that made her chest ache. When he replied, his words were measured. He told her the operations she was describing were sophisticated and dangerous. That they suggested involvement in international networks that did not tolerate exposure. That if Kola suspected she knew, the risk to her safety would escalate quickly. He told her she needed to be careful, and that if she wanted his help, it would come with consequences. Fear rippled through her, followed by a clarity that surprised her with its steadiness. Ebony had built her career anticipating risk, designing contingencies, finding leverage where none seemed to exist. She was not powerless even now. She told Jihoon she wanted to understand what she was facing. She wanted to act. Their conversations shifted into something sharper, threaded with urgency. Jihoon helped her map connections, identify patterns she might have missed. He taught her how to hide her tracks, how to protect her data. He never commanded. He suggested. He deferred to her judgment, reminding her that this was her life, her decision to make. The trust between them deepened, layered now with something warmer, more dangerous. Desire simmered beneath the surface, unfulfilled, charged by proximity that existed only in imagination. Kola noticed the change. His questions grew pointed, his gaze lingering on her phone, on the way she moved through the apartment. The air between them felt tight, coiled. When he asked her one evening if she was hiding something, his tone casual but his eyes sharp, Ebony understood that time had run out. Men began appearing near the building. Strangers whose interest lingered a beat too long. Ebony altered her routines, her awareness sharpening with each step she took through the city. Ibadan felt different now, every street a calculation, every crowd a variable. Through it all, Jehun remained a steady presence, his voice calm even when the stakes climbed. He shared more of himself then, pieces of a past shaped by choices that blurred moral lines, by work that demanded emotional distance. He did not ask for absolution. He simply trusted her with the truth. When Ebony uncovered proof that tied Kola directly to a shipment scheduled to move through multiple continents, she acted. She passed the information to the authorities through channels Jehun helped her secure. The response was swift and quiet. Investigations ignited across borders. Networks began to fracture. Kola vanished before they could reach him. The apartment felt hollow without him, the danger not gone but transformed into something diffuse and unpredictable. Ebony packed a bag, ready to disappear if necessary, her heart heavy with grief for the man she thought she knew and the life she had imagined with him. Jehun stayed with her through every moment, his messages a lifeline, his restraint a reminder that connection did not have to consume. As the immediate threat receded, a different tension settled between them. They acknowledged it carefully, naming neither love nor promise, but recognizing the desire that had grown in the space between fear and trust. Their words lingered, charged with what they did not yet allow themselves to claim. Ebony stood on her balcony one evening, the city lights stretching out below her, the air cooler against her skin. Her phone vibrated softly in her hand. Jehun was awake. And the story was far from over. Ebony did not reply immediately. She watched the city breathe beneath her, headlights threading through darkness, lives intersecting and separating without ceremony. The phone was warm in her palm, Jehun's presence felt more than read. Since Kola's disappearance, nights had taken on a fragile clarity. Fear no longer screamed. It whispered. It reminded her that safety was provisional, that survival was an ongoing decision. She typed slowly, deliberately, telling Jehun she was still standing, still thinking, still unsure what came next. His response arrived with reassuring steadiness. He told her that uncertainty was not weakness, that it was the space where better choices could be made. He did not ask her to come to him. He did not promise rescue. He offered proximity without pressure, a rare thing that made her chest ache. In the weeks that followed, the investigations expanded. International agencies moved carefully, quietly dismantling pieces of the network Kola had been part of. Ebony was interviewed more than once, always with lawyers present, always measured in what she shared. She learned quickly how to protect herself with language, how to offer truth without vulnerability. It was a skill she had not known she possessed. Jehun faced his own reckoning in Busan. His past work, once buried beneath layers of deniability, drew attention as authorities traced logistics pathways backward. He cooperated where he could, withheld where he must. The balance was delicate. He slept even less, his messages arriving at odd hours, his restraint unwavering. When he admitted exhaustion, it felt intimate, a confession offered without expectation of comfort. Their connection shifted again, deepening under pressure. They spoke of fear openly now, of desire carefully. Sometimes the conversations grew quiet, stretching into silences that felt charged rather than empty. Ebony could almost imagine his presence, the weight of him beside her, the restraint that defined him mirrored in herself. Nothing explicit passed between them. Everything important did. One night, after a particularly difficult interview, Ebony broke down. The tears surprised her, coming hot and sudden, her body shaking with the release of weeks held too tightly. She messaged Jehun without thinking, words fragmented, vulnerable. He responded immediately, not with solutions, not with reassurances, but with presence. He stayed with her through the shaking, through the slow return of breath. When she finally steadied, she realized how profoundly he had seen her without ever touching her. Months passed. The danger receded but never vanished entirely. Kola remained at large, a shadow that lingered at the edge of her thoughts. Ebony moved apartments, altered her routines, rebuilt her sense of normal with care. She threw herself into her work, advising cities now with a deeper understanding of fragility and resilience. Her designs changed. They became smarter, stronger, more human. Jihun remained in Busan, bound by obligations and scrutiny that made leaving impossible for now. Still, the distance between them felt less absolute. They planned nothing concrete, but they imagined cautiously, sharing visions of future meetings without attaching timelines. It was a form of intimacy that required patience, and it suited them. The final development came quietly. A message from an unknown number, routed through layers of encryption Jihun recognized immediately. A warning. Kola was alive. Cornered but dangerous. The investigations had narrowed his world, but desperation made men reckless. Ebony felt the old fear stir, but it did not take root. She forwarded the message, followed protocols she now knew by heart. Authorities tightened their net. Jihun coordinated from his side, his expertise crucial but not dominant. Ebony made decisions, weighed risks, chose when to move and when to wait. She was no longer reacting. She was directing. When Kola was finally captured at a border crossing thousands of miles away, the news came without celebration. Relief arrived slowly, cautiously. Consequences followed as they always did. Networks collapsed. Others adapted. The world did not become safe. It rarely did. That night, Ebony and Jihun spoke for hours. Not about danger. About ordinary things. About the way survival reshaped desire, how restraint could be its own form of intimacy. When the conversation finally slowed, neither rushed to end it. There was no declaration. No dramatic promise. Just an understanding, quiet and powerful, that what they had built mattered because it had been chosen deliberately, without illusion. Ebony set her phone down and leaned against the balcony rail, the city alive beneath her. She felt changed. Not healed, perhaps, but sharpened. Awake in a way that felt sustainable. This was not the end of her story. Or his. It was the threshold. Thank you for staying with this story until the end. I'd love to hear what you think about Ebony and Jihun. About the choices they made and the risks they accepted. Would you have taken the same path? If this story held you, please like, share and subscribe to Afrosiora Chronicles channel. These stories are only just beginning, and you're part of what comes next.